Hi, this is the New Art and Science of Classroom Assessment book talk by Guadalupe Garman. The introduction about classroom assessment. First of all, I would like to talk about why I choose this book. I know that we have a couple of options, and I decided to start reading this book because I work for Amphi District, and this year the district adopt a new grading system. So we're making the transition from 0 to 100, the scale that we used to have, to a 0 to 4 grading scale. So they adopt this new system to measure the level of proficiency on the state standards for each student. So it was honestly it has been very challenging, all this transition that we have. And this book, it has been very helpful in this process, and I'm going to explain you some of the things that these books offer. So, in the book, explore the ineffective methods of traditional assessment and explain how to take a good use of assessments to plan a lesson, covering the standards and having an effective learning environment. Another thing that goes through is explain strategies for assessing the 4 general skills on the students: the cognitive, knowledgeable publication, metacognitive, and general behavior skills, and also describe the measurements process and different types of assessments. The highlights that I have, it was the standards against assessments. And like I mentioned before, right now this new change of that the district has, it was more focused on have the proficiency on the standards, and following with all the standards. It sometimes gets confused about, like, okay, I'm covering this, but I'm also covering this, and need to cover 3 or 2 standards at the same time. So in this book, I thought it was very interesting that it mentioned that we don't have to try to teach and assess all the standards, that we need to identify the small sets of topics, and from there start working on our planning, and later on our assessments. So the fact that it helped to make a better distribution about, like for example, I'm teaching Spanish, to work on certain area first, and whenever we have this area done, then start working on, for example, the grammar. Whenever they understand the grammar, then start working on the writing, and then start working on the listening or the speaking. So kind of like from the same standard that I need to teach, kind of like make it regrouped, so it will make it easier not teach all the things at the same time, but in small groups, trying to cover the whole standard, but in a different way. So I thought it was very interesting the way that it presented. So another thing that it was very interesting for me was the way that they present the parallel assessment. And it talks about parallel assessments does not mean that every assessment must include all 3 levels of proficiency scale. So in this one, it just talks about all the instructional feedback, about all the tools that we can use, that sometimes we try to make a test, and sometimes it works very well for students, but then we need to cover again that standard, and it's probably a little bit harder, and the kids don't do very well. And it's not that they are not doing well, it's just that it gets a little bit harder. So it just work and present the way that we need to teach and assess all those kind of standards. So I thought that was very interesting, the way that it would present it on every area, like dividing the standards. So another area that it present, and I kind of like it, it was the summative scores. And in this one, it explained about, and I think it was kind of working with the same the chapter that we were reading with the effective teaching, the methods of effective teaching and the ratings. because it explained about the summative assessment. It will be an end of the unit assessment, and the formative assessment, it will be during the class. So it talks about, it was giving an example about whenever somebody's building a house, somebody needs, an inspector needs to go out and make some evaluations in the house whenever somebody's building the house. So first, maybe you check the gas installation. So if the gas installation is working, okay, that's something that is done and it's good. And then maybe the water installation. So it's checked and it's working well. So it's kind of blocks that is working to have the whole thing together. So formative components are the building blocks and pieces of information in the evaluation process. So whenever we have a current summative score, the student's status at a particular point, but this status can change later on. So it's just kind of like the process that the formative assessment will be getting pieces to have a whole thing together with the summative assessment. So I thought it was very interesting the way that it was presented, about how we can assess this. It also explained a lot about the instructional feedback. When teachers are asked questions during the class but does not score or record answers, it's part of the instructional feedback. Like, we know that they are understanding the content that we're teaching. So sometimes we will notice that the class is a little bit confused, or the content is not quite there yet. So when these scores on the scale, it will be an instructional feedback that we know they're not understanding so well. We need to change the strategy for being teaching that content. It also showed the mathematical models and the record keeping and reporting. So that was very interesting to see that they have the website, and in the in the book it comes with a website that is it shows about the linear, all the kind of options that it shows, that we can put all the scores for the students, and it kind of like help us to see what is the progress. Like, if there's no progress, then we need to make some changes in our lesson plan or the way that we will teach that. So I thought this one, the precision scores, also about sometimes we will have some errors, like the average, linear, and power law, that depending on the grades that the students are having, we will be checking what it will be the result, like for a state test. Like, I don't do an state test, but I think it will be very good for language and arts or for science to follow up with these precision scores. And also has the reliability data that it shows about how the average of growth for each student and as a class. So I thought that was very interesting. Like, I've never seen this kind of information before. Like, I know, like, right now I'm learning with my new system that we have also in the district, and it kind of shows something like that, and I was looking and making some comparison, but I thought this is very interesting, how with the grades that we input in there, we can see how the student is, the growing that they're having, and if they're ready for the state test. Some connections that I have. So, like I said, the district new grading assessment system, it make a lot of connection with me to be reading the book and learning with the new system that we have. So, like I said, so far it has been very helpful. After I have read the book, it was like, oh, I'm just getting so many good things from there to apply in my classroom. So the previous grading and the new grading, something that I noticed in the book is that they have like the 0 and 4 system, the one that we're having right now, and the way that they apply. Like, at this point, I'm still learning if we can put 3.5 or 3.25 but it was so far really good to know about how to put the standards in a certain, like how to be measuring those standards for the new system. Then how to incorporate standards in my lesson plan and assess students correctly, and mounting evidence in a Spanish classroom. And about this, I thought it was very interesting that in this mounting evidence, the method teaches that we will record the formative assessments and instructional feedback, so as a total, which it will be a summative score. So in this mountain evidence, the teachers we will be assessing the different kind of assignments connecting to a particular standard, and how the evidence of proficiency will contain assignments such as practice work done in class. So something that that we need to be assessing without a paper, like having a conversation with the kids, like in my case that I'm teach Spanish. It's a lot of times happens that they are talking, they are understanding, and it's not just sometimes like, the students will not do very well on writing, but they are fluent in the theme that I'm teaching. So I think that it was a really good it's a really good approach for my class. In conclusion, it's a great assessment. They have a lot of strategies that I mean it helping if it's in the 0 to 4 system. I think it helps a lot. I don't know how we'll understand this book if I will be in the 0 to 100 system, but so far it works very well for me and on this transition that I'm having right now. And it provides options to grade correctly the standards of the lesson, which I think is really important nowadays, to be following and covering all the standards. So that's all what I have to say about the book. I will really recommend it. Like I said, if you are, or if your district is in the 0 to 4, I will really recommend this book, because it's a lot of good strategies for you to being able to cover the standards in the best way.